Good afternoon and welcome at the Biomedical Chunks with Sam for you, Manuel. Today I have a very interesting guest, Mr. Siddhartha Gupta. Um, we had some communication in the last few weeks, and I think about two weeks ago we decided to have this podcast. And the reason why is because I'm, as a novel person residing in India for just over 3 years, coming from a conventional allopathic background, I was very intrigued about Ayurvedic medicine. And if there's someone who is well acquainted with the matter, then it's Mr. Siddhartha Sengupta. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks.
Let's go back in time. So you used to work, I think, primarily in the chemical industry. You're a chemical engineer with an MBA, if I'm not mistaken. So you're not an Ayurvedic doctor, just to make it clear for the listeners and the viewers. But you made a huge shift in 2015 when you left Merck. Merck is known as a pharmaceutical company, chemical company, and you were director for Asia, if I'm not mistaken. And suddenly you made a shift towards Ayurvedic medicine. In the meantime, you developed Samskrt Life, which are Ayurvedic clinics. So how did it come about? Where did it come from that your interest as a non-medical person, that it tickled you to step into the direction of Ayurvedic medicine and even more, start your own clinics with Ayurvedic doctors?
Right. A lot of people ask me the same question, sir. In fact, first of all, thank you for the introduction. And yes, I'm a chemical engineer, MBA. I've been in the chemical industry as well as pharmaceutical industry for the last for around 24 years. And post which I realized that, when you are in the pharmaceutical industry or when you are in the chemical industry, what is the kind of value addition that you're adding to human life? I started asking myself about this question. And that's when I would say spiritually, I started moving or elevating towards Ayurveda. And I've always been interested and intrigued by Ayurveda, the natural process of treating. But the transition wasn't easy, of course, because when you want to quit, the corporate and your regular job and a high-paying job, you want to move towards a business where globally Ayurveda is not really known so much, and you want to establish an organization where which is authentic, which talks about reversals of lifestyle diseases, which is trying to get into chronic diseases. That's where it started getting a little difficult. But just to take you through the whole journey, after having quit the Asia Pacific position in Merck, I, uh, started discussing with a few friends of mine that how would I want to start Ayurveda. And that's where I came across one of my most senior doctors, Dr. Parat. And he asked me, he actually called me to his clinic and he said, sit down while I, see the patients. And why is it that you would want to be in Ayurveda? What would Ayurveda get from you by, you're from the corporate, you're an engineer. In what way can you help? So I sat through probably around 2 to 3 hours, just watching him, talking to his patient, just watching him question and doing the diagnosis. And after the end of it, it was around 8 o'clock or 8:30 in the evening. And he said, I'm glad you stayed back. That really shows that you're patient and the fact that you're really keen. So I had to tell him, I read a few books and I want to discuss Ayurveda with you. And I want to take this preventive healthcare, predictive healthcare, and reversal of diseases globally. And he laughed. He said, how honest and sure you are about continuing this journey. And now I had to tell him that, I've completely come out of the corporate because I'm quite fed up with the corporate life in the terms of Well, it was a high life. I was traveling the world. I was, there was a nice glass of wine and first class and business class, but that didn't interest me anymore. What interested me was how Ayurveda was so beautiful as a methodology, medical system, and how beautiful and perfect it was. In fact, during the last few years of my travel across the world, I used to carry my bottle of oil, which I use for using it on my body before a bath or shower, and I used to also carry along with me something called Triphala, which is an immunomodulator. So, you know, I told him these stories, and he was quite intrigued. He said, "Okay, fine, we start." It took a lot of effort to actually find uh, good Vaidyas or good doctors. In Ayurveda, they call Vaidya. And it was very difficult or very, I would say, cumbersome to find great doctors who can be along with me in this journey, which I have been for the last 10 years. We have around 5 Vaidyas now at this moment. Yeah.
For the listeners, I can imagine, and certainly listeners from the West, it's not always easy, to swallow things like you've been stating now. I have an immunomodulator and I rub it onto my body. People are like, I've been educated like that as well. Ayurvedic medicine and traditional Chinese medicine is all bollocks and it doesn't work and there's no scientific proof. Which brings me to a case. 2 weeks ago, we were talking about having this podcast. And I think a day later or something, if I'm not mistaken, there was a huge roar in the national Indian press concerning a former professional cricket player by the name of Navjot Singh Sidhu. Yeah, and he's extremely popular apparently. I'm not too well acquainted with him, but he used to be a TV personality. He used to be a politician. He was elected in the Rajya Sabha, which is the equivalent of the upper house in the UK, in the parliament. He was a minister of tourism apparently as well. He's a well-known character, and he suddenly reached out to the media, the national media in India, and he held a huge press conference, and everyone was there, and he was cited by his wife. And he made a statement in which he said, "Look, my wife has had 4th-grade cancer, and the allopathic model just gave her 3% survival rate. So we made a huge shift in our lives, and we went for an Ayurvedic approach, a total therapy plan, but he was focusing primarily on food as medicine. And she was drinking lemon water and tulsi, and she was taking neem, and that everyone was completely flabbergasted in the press. It got a huge amount of attention. Now, the thing is, apparently, his wife is a gynecologist, so a medical doctor herself, an allopathic doctor who made the shift as well. And so it was a big role. Then I think about 3 days or 4 days ago, there was a letter from the Tata hospitals signed by 262 oncologists, allopathic colleagues, who refuted the whole claim and said it's not scientific and how can you do this? And you're talking about treating a 4th-grade cancer patient, curing them with Ayurveda. There's no science behind it. And I was once again flabbergasted. There was like, here we go again. Where is the science? Now, few hours ago, I read, it's again everywhere in the news, that a civil society organization in Chhattisgarh has, together with an oncologist apparently, has put a legal notice on the table for Mr. Singh and his wife for the amount of 850 crores, which is approximately $100 million. And they get 1 week to produce the evidence. And so These kind of stories, which I find flabbergasting. Why? Because India, constitutionally and legally, accepts Ayurvedic medicine. It's something you can study here. You can get a university degree in Ayurvedic medicine, as well as allopathy or homeopathy. These are all recognized professions. Even more, other complementary holistic medicines are allowed. There is no restriction whatsoever. Prime Minister Modi himself is a huge fan of Ayurveda. And now they claim 850 crores, $100 million lawsuit case because we cannot provide the evidence. What's your take on this? And what does it say about the allopathic model versus the Ayurvedic model here in India and across the world?
Sure. I think you actually hit the nail on the point, Sam. The fact that, I am from the other side, as in from the pharmaceuticals, and I have been an engineer, and I have studied modern science, modern physics. And after studying, mind you, when I started this business, I had to study the entire Ayurvedic text. I may not be a qualified doctor, but I have read the Sushruta Samhita and the entire Sushruta Samhita, and I have been sitting with all my doctors during all the consultations. And if there is ever anything which is scientific, I would say there's nothing more beautiful, not more perfect, and not more knowledgeable in terms of the body, human body, sees as much as the Ayurveda. Yeah. Let me give you examples. Now, the first case of cancer that we have taken was in 2015, was a lady from Serbia. And she had, got melanoma first, which is skin cancer. And because of using, these IR radiation, a lot of women do these tanning, fake tans. So she got it from that. Post which it moved on, metastasized, and went to her colon. She was given approximately 6 months to live. And she had tried everything possible in Western medicine. Her father had just happened to be in India and met me by chance. He asked me, would you take my daughter's case? We said we would. And she's been she's been one of the most fantastic patients that you can have. Because she listened to everything we told her to do, right from using oil on your body, sesame oil, because that is lymphatic drainage, which we had taught her how to improve her lymphatic system by using oil and then steaming. We've given her medicines, which, I always tell people that all Ayurvedic medicines are made adaptogenic. Now, when we say adaptogenic, it just means that the plants and herbs in the cells of every plant and herbs, they can mimic human cells. Like, for example, many people might not know, scientists today are trying to use a spinach leaf as a heart. Yeah. So this is something which is extraordinary, and modern science has no idea about. Now, if you do not have an idea about something, they will always look at it like an alien. They will always look at it like as if it's something which is threatening. And modern science and modern doctors, for that matter, look at Ayurveda in the sense, for them, everything which is evidence-based in today's modern science, if you see it, everything is evidence-based. Why do they need evidence? Because it's just 250 years old. Ayurveda is something with 7,000.
If I may interrupt, not even 250. The Ayurvedic medicine started in around 1920. So it's only it's baby.
Exactly. It's even younger. Ayurveda is something which has been going on for the last 7,500 to approximately 10,000 years. So their evidence It's already been done. They've been there, done that. Research has been done. But of course, the way modern science looks at research is very different than what Ayurveda looks at research. My take on the whole concept of Ayurveda is quantum physics. If you see the Vedas today and the Bhagavad Gita, the Vedas, the Upanishad, all of them are based on nothing but quantum physics and quantum mechanics. And I could understand better because, since being an engineer, I could understand the whole concept of quantum physics. Now, coming back to Ayurveda, the concept of epigenetics, which allopathy or modern medicine is trying to graduate towards today, is already there. Ayurveda is completely what epigenetics is. In fact, it's more. It's something which is epigenetics, it's pre-genetics, transgenetics, and more. Now, if people say that, okay, you know what, how can you say that Ayurveda is epigenetics? Now, three are, the starter
Clarify epigenetics, because I can imagine that a few listeners or viewers are not acquainted with the term.
Yeah. So epigenetics clearly is when your body moves from genetic predisposition, which is the kind of, genes or DNA functions that you have in your body when you're born. How would you move towards, in Ayurveda, it's called Vikruti, or it is nothing but, epigenetic changes in your body. And the mind, they're not just epigenetic changes. They are basically, just temporary epigenetic changes in your body, and which causes something called as lifestyle disease. Now, when you move from pre-genetics to temporary epigenetic changes in your body, that's when you have something like a blood pressure, you would have something like a diabetes, you have something like an autoimmune, or even cancer. Yeah. And when does this happen? It happens when there are 6 factors, or I would say 5 very important factors. 1 is your lifestyle. 2 is your diet. 3 is the kind of exercise that you do. 4 is the environment you live in or stay in. 5 being the stress that you go through in life. It can be physical stress or mental stress. And 6, last but not the least, it's behavior. What kind of behavior you have in your day-to-day life. So these are the 6 factors that affect your gene, affects your DNA, by which there are, in your, if you see a cell in a human cell, there is something called a, DNA, there is RNA, there are genes, and there is mitochondria. Now, these RNAs, the function of RNAs are nothing but to send code messages to the DNA for the cell to be able to function in a certain way.
So what we basically do, what we're basically doing is, in genes, you have a switch on and a switch off button, and we don't have a real insight into it, but a lot of people are born with, let's say, 10,000 of them switched off and 15,000, and you are trying to change the switch off to the switch on to regulate the body and get more balance and homeostasis. I can relate, and that's something I always find peculiar. I can relate to what you are saying. Why? Because we already know in the classical I'm an allopathically trained health professional. I ran through the scientific method from day one. So I don't know anything else. And even within that scientific method, it has been proven for already in 1979, Antonovsky wrote a first published paper on the importance of self-control, taking back control of your own health. And since the 90s, there is a huge consensus, or as much as we can speak of consensus in science, but okay, that word I don't really like, but It's generally accepted within the fields of public health and epidemiology that social determinants of health, which you explain as the environment that has an influence on you, the stress levels that have an influence on you, these have been described. Moreover, it's described in the Western science that 80% of your health is constituted by these social determinants of health, not by pathogens, not by medicine as a cure, but indeed where you live, how you live, stress levels.
Well, sorry for interrupting. I would like to correct that. Around 98% of the diseases today are because of epigenetic changes. Only 2%, 2 to 3% are because of genetic issues or genetic genes related issues. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, that I do agree, but that's a bit different than the social determinants of health. But I do agree that I looked into the figures last week again. So a few years ago, which also I find peculiar, the WHO stated that about 56 million people a year die prematurely of non-communicable diseases. So basically, lifestyle diseases. Last week, that figure dropped at the WHO side to 41 million. But anyway, still millions of people die every year to these lifestyle related diseases. And the question is, where does it come from? How does the Ayurvedic model look at these lifestyle diseases? Because I don't have the feeling that in the Western model, they have an answer. The only thing that they talk about is you have to diminish your fat intake because cholesterol is bad, which novel Western research already counters and states most probably cholesterol doesn't even have anything to do with these cardiovascular risks. But it's still so ingrained in the Western allopathic model. But how does Ayurveda look at this principle?
So Ayurveda clearly says that most of these diseases that you have today, non-communicable diseases and lifestyle diseases, can be reversed. Number one. There are in fact, Ayurveda clearly says, for example, in diabetes, Ayurveda says there are 14 types of diabetes. Amongst these 14 types of diabetes, only 2 cannot be reversed. The rest 12 can all be reversed with a lifestyle change, a diet change, medicines, which detoxes you and drains the toxins from your mitochondria so that your mitochondria can perform better, so that your cells can perform better. And your DNA can again start, sending the codes and making the cells function in a certain way and create the concept in your body called apoptosis again. And of course, there are other things like exercise, which is yoga, because yoga has the capacity to alter gene expressions, and there has been a lot of research regarding that. And finally, it's also behavior. Like I said, in epigenetics, if you see behavior as well as all these four factors hold good, and it completely juxtaposes with what Ayurveda says, that these 5 are the factors that affect human body and human genes and the DNA, because of which the cells are not able to function normally. And that's exactly why the metabolic pathways in your body get choked. Yeah? Ayurveda is of the principle that human body is nothing but several small, micro, minuscule channels in your body. And this is nothing but metabolic pathways. And that's proven. Even modern science says that there is something called metabolic pathways in our body. So Ayurveda has, there are no concept or names for diseases as such, except for a few diseases like diabetes or madhumena, as it's called. It doesn't talk about cancer. It just says there are diseases which can, alter all the 3 RNAs, that is the mRNA, rRNA, and tRNA. In Ayurveda, it's called Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So all these 3 doshas, when these 3 RNAs get destroyed, or the codes from these 3 RNAs are not able to function normally, that's where your body starts to turn against you. Okay. Or that's when your body starts to completely forget, or it loses its memory. The cells lose their memory of apoptosis. They lose their memory of what their function is, because the DNA has not been giving the right information. The RNAs have not been performing, normally, and or are not balanced, as Ayurveda. So clear. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I heard you talking about reversing diabetes. I heard some case studies on people that had a total reversal of their illness. Now, these are claims that the allopathic model loves as well. And they always claim the efficiency is high and blah, blah, blah. Until you look at their own scientific research behind it that claims otherwise. Most of the allopathic uh, drugs that are being offered for chronic and lifestyle diseases are completely inefficient. Even within cancer treatments after 50, 60 years, they're still not able to cure it properly. Um, and moreover, we even see now in recent research that chemotherapy might even enhance metastasis. So that all doesn't look too good, but the claim is always, and that's what I hear from your side as well, we can cure it. And so I wonder now, because you're a great proponent for Ayurveda, but what's the success rate? And if the success rate is so high, how come that the model is still stuck, the Ayurvedic model, in the backdraw of the sciences?
Okay, so firstly, I would like to tell the audience as well as you, Sam, that when people have, when do people come to Ayurveda? Uh, a few people in India who know and understand the power of Ayurveda, they come first to Ayurveda, okay, which they should be doing as a matter of fact. Any disease, because most diseases today are nothing but metabolic diseases. They are failure of cellular metabolism. Okay. Now, there are a few people who actually come, whether it's cancer, whether it's heart disease, whether it's Parkinson, whether it's autoimmunes like psoriasis, whether it's RA, or whether it's even cancer for that matter. They come to us when allopathy has given up on them. And they come to us and tell us that, why don't you try and save us? Save me now. So we tell them that, yes, we will try, because your body's already been destroyed by, several chemicals or petrochemical medicines that you've taken. However, in fact, I think most of the Vaidyas here would agree that probably the most important, most difficult part for a Vaidya is to detoxify the chemicals that are inside us humans today, which includes the medicines that we take. Uh, but at the same time, if you go to any Ayurvedic doctor, they have the most difficult cases, be it fourth stage cancers, be it the diabetes neuropathy, be it gangrene, and where people have to chop off their legs, be it macular degeneration, where they have are probably going to go blind. And these are the cases that come to us, and they are the ones we actually heal and reverse. Now, many people give testimonials of this. Like if you go to our website, you will see a lot of testimonials. But again, modern medicine does not believe in testimonials. Number one, they want their model of peer-reviewed and evidence-based single molecule medicine. But that's not how Ayurveda works. Ayurveda, the model of Ayurveda is very different. It's actually bang opposite of what allopathy is. Now, when we say in Ayurveda, if a person has to heal a patient, we don't call it heal the disease, heal a patient, because if there are 7 billion patients, 7 billion people on the planet, there would be 7 billion protocols for all the diseases. So, in first thing is we change their lifestyle, because 40 to 50% of any disease will be altered or reversed only by change in lifestyle. Okay. Second is a diet. We give them an epigenetic diet, which is basically a detox diet by which their body starts to eliminate the toxins inside them. Uh, Three is, of course, with medicines. I've told you that all our medicines are adaptogenic. And in fact, most of our medicines can be made to cross the blood-brain barrier. Allopathy or modern medicine has very few, or rather zero number of medicines which can actually cross the blood-brain barrier. Uh, Ayurveda has herbs which are adaptogenic, as well as they can be mixed with nanomedicines or plasmas, which can be which can cross the blood-brain barrier, go into the cells, cellular structures, and detox and remove the kind of toxins that are inside. The fourth one, of course, there is a concept called panchakarma, which is detox. There are different kinds of methodologies for detoxing, cellular detox in Ayurveda, by which we can, one example is to flood the body with ghee. It's called Virachan, where we give a person to drink a medicated ghee for 5 to 7 days. The person is completely flooded with ghee, so much so that he starts to get ghee, on his skin, and he, feels completely oily. And after 2 or 3 days, we give them purgation, and they go to the loo around 30 times. And normally, people would think that if a person goes to the loo and evacuates 30 times, you get dehydrated. But no, this doesn't happen, because we've given them medicated ghee, and that also proves that ghee doesn't clog your pores or does not create cholesterol. Rather, it's just the other way around. It actually reduces cholesterol. And like you mentioned, cholesterol is now a big myth. A lot of allopaths themselves are saying that statins don't work. In fact, they destroy cholesterol. The function of cholesterol itself is to build your hormonal system, to build it, to improve your vitamin D. And of course, people have no idea that vitamin D is actually a hormone, not a vitamin. At the same time, ghee has the capacity to actually cross the cell, because if you see the the cover of the cell, each cell is lipid protein, and ghee is nothing but lipid protein.
So for the people who know, ghee is clarified butter, because a lot of people in the West they ask themselves, ghee. So I was listening to you, and you were talking about food as medicine and the herbs and the plants that you use within Ayurveda to counter and even reverse these chronic and lifestyle illnesses. Now, I wonder, within that total treatment plan, is stress control or mental health control, uh, exercise also a part of the bigger picture if you treat chronic and lifestyle diseases, or is it basically just food as medicine, plant-based supplements, etc.?
No, the mental health is, Ayurveda, first of all, the Sam says that all diseases start with the mind. Yeah. So you have to treat the mind for every patient that you get. Okay. Whether it's cancer, whether it's heart disease, whether it's diabetes, we have to treat the mind. We have to give counseling. We call it Vedic counseling. We have to give them certain kinds of medicines by which their mental health improves. Okay, so I'll tell you why. If you go a little bit into the depth of how disease starts, what Ayurveda says is that a certain incident happens in our life by which we get a certain kind of trauma. When we have that certain kind of trauma, our brain starts to look at that trauma and starts to, you know, we it's like winding the wool on that incident. So you keep, reiterating that incident in your mind all the time. And you go up to a point where you start eating wrong, you start losing sleep, you start behaving differently, you start exercising wrongly, or you stop exercising completely. And that's exactly what epigenetic changes are. And that's exactly what causes the lifestyle disease. So you see, when all diseases, they start with the mind and then manifests in the body. So I no Ayurvedic doctor, any authentic Ayurvedic doctor can claim that they are healing a disease without healing mind. So a mental health and physical health both go hand in hand. And any organism, any human body, if you want to heal, you have to heal it in its entirety. You cannot heal only part of it. You cannot heal only the hand or the leg or the liver. No, you have to heal the entire human being, which includes the mind, the body, the soul, everything.
Isn't that the peculiar problem you have? And not only Ayurvedic medicine, but also the traditional Chinese medicine, tip medicine in Africa. You all have one thing in common, and that is what I call the holistic approach. So you're not only treating the symptom. No, you first of all go and try to find the root cause, and you attack the root cause by implementing a broad scale of different therapies all together in a big treatment plan. And isn't that the huge problem? All these so-called complementary therapies or medicines have in common when it comes down to proving their efficiency. Because as you stated before, the scientific Western model is basically entered or completely on the allopathic medicine medical model, which just goes down to the smallest molecule, as you stated, and they just do research on one variable, two, three at max, and then they have control over that one variable, that one drug, that one therapeutic form, one exercise, one, I don't know what, but it's always one, a one-off. And you come with a wide scale of variables, which doesn't even fit within the scientific model to be researched because it doesn't allow for it to be researched. Isn't that what all these so-called alternative medical professionals and researchers face? Is that it's very difficult to put that whole spectrum of therapies into a scientific model that doesn't allow for it to be used.
Yes, yes, completely. I always make the statement. It's like when you're trying to fit allopathy and Ayurveda, you're trying to fit an elephant like Ayurveda into a matchbox, which is allopathy or modern medicine. The kind of variables that you have in Ayurveda is so massive that to contain that, like I said before, that if there are 7 billion people on the planet, there would be 7 billion protocols. For example, if we have a lung cancer, if we have 3 lung cancer patients, 1 because of smoking, 2 because of grief, and 3 because it's metastatic cancer, you have to treat all 3 of them differently. Allopathy would treat all 3 of them with the same drug. We don't. We treat them with a different lifestyle because the guy who's smoking has some kind of mental health issues because of which, he's gone to this addiction of smoking. So we need to first treat his mind, his or her mind. And then we have to also make sure that the lung starts to become stronger, and the lung itself can remove the cancer from the cells of the lungs. Second is the person who has because of grief. For that person, we have a lot of cancer patients, lung cancer patients who have never smoked in their lifestyle. In their lifetime, they live in villages in perfect harmony with nature. At the same time, there's not much pollution around them. But at the same time, they have lung cancer, and mostly because of grief, because of either a death of a child or severe, problems in their marital, issues with the marriages, or it can be because of their parents' death or financial issues. So a lot of people, because of grief, the grief affects the lungs as well. So we need to treat them very differently from the person who's a smoker. Now, the third person, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, because this triggers me. Talking about grief, lung cancer, I've heard this scene, a line story in Chinese medicine and even in German medicine. Now, nobody knows about German medicine, or at least not a lot of people do, but German medicine is based and was, if I'm not mistaken, introduced somewhere in the 19th century, but went back to the old scriptures of I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, but most generally speaking, all the knowledge that came through the Silk Route about 1,500 years ago, there was a huge transfer of knowledge from and through the Silk Route from India, China, towards the Western countries. So the guy who started off with German medicine read a lot about these historical scriptures that already talked about grief as being one of the major influences of health. And within German medicine, and I don't agree with everything they state. They also deny viruses, etc., etc. But they talk about the same thing, and that's peculiar because, as you said, your knowledge goes back thousands and thousands of years, and this is being thrown off the table completely in the allopathic model. I've seen so much. It appears more and more to me that we are completely incapable of treating patients efficiently within the allopathic model, just because we are so focused and indoctrinated in believing that we can only change things on a molecular level, while it's the whole holistic approach that quite often comes back in all scriptures that we see for thousands and thousands of years. It just struck me what you said. And since I'm starting to believe that cancer is even a natural process. It's a process of your body trying to heal itself. And maybe I sometimes wonder, from an allopathic viewpoint, aren't we looking at cancer? We're looking at cancer as something foreign to the body. And that's why we want to treat it, because it's not an element we see in a so-called healthy patient. And everything that diverges from the healthy, fixed, indoctrinated picture we have of a human, that we have to fix. But absolutely, is cancer something foreign to the body, or is it inherently there and kind of?
So every human, at any point in time has cancer in their body. At any point in time it's like it could be a minuscule cell which is there in our body with cancer. Now, what exactly is cancer is probably not understood by the mainstream media, that only destroying this cell is going to sort it. It's not. Because what, like you mentioned before, you need to know the root cause of any disease. It's only when you know the root cause of a disease, why is this happening, only then can you stop it. Yeah. This just destroying a cell, destroying cancer cells is not going to stop you from getting cancer again. And that's exactly why 50 to 60% of, if you read anywhere, you can find out in the net, and more than 50 to 60% of the patients either remission, they may have had remission of cancer, but then it comes back again, or, it metastasizes after a few years, sometimes few weeks, sometimes few days. So the first premise that people need to understand is, how does the body work? Number one, it starts. You need to understand the birth of human beings for that. Yeah. We start with a single cell. Okay. And then these cluster of cells become tissues, and these cluster of tissues become organs, and these, group of organs become a human being. So if you can take care of the cells, the human being, the organs are taken care of. You don't need to chop them off and throw them out. So if you can go right onto the cellular level, which I'm sorry to say, but modern medicine doesn't have the knowledge of epigenetics as of now. We are still discovering it. In fact, there was a study done in Georgia Tech just last week regarding RNA, and what Ayurveda exactly says, that the function of RNA, or Vata Pitta Kapha, or mRNA, rRNA, and tRNA is not just about protein synthesis. It's also about repairing DNA. Now, if one Googles, they can find out this research that is, which Ayurveda clearly says that these RNAs or these doshas, as they are called, it's just a different name, can repair the DNA, and that's exactly what epigenetics is all about. Now, coming back again to yeah, what you were talking about with respect to symptoms, like if you only, Ayurveda says that it's not about giving medicine to a human being for the entire life. In fact, Ayurveda says that if you give any kind of medicine, even Ayurvedic or forget about allopathic, and more than 8 months to a year, or these kinds of medication, if you keep giving, the medicine can become toxic. So any human being should not be given medicine for their entire lifetime. In fact, if one sees epigenetics, the kind of allopathic medicine causes severe epigenetic changes in our DNA. So the question of taking these kinds of medications on a regular basis and just suppressing your symptoms is not the solution, and that's exactly why the system is broken. That's exactly why modern medicine is now looking at epigenetics slash Ayurveda or TCM or whatever it is. And yes, like you said, the knowledge has moved from the Silk Route. It has gone from um, you know, a lot of Indians would be aware that there was a Chinese man called Wen Sang who had come to Nalanda University, learned Ayurveda, taken our scriptures from here and developed TCM. A lot of books have gone from via the Silk Route to Europe, to Greece, and that's where Greek medicine was made. So, that time it was a free world. It was people could just come and go anywhere. So, knowledge was shared. And that's exactly what we are doing now, Sam. We are trying to share knowledge and we are trying to empower people. You and me, you're trying to make people aware that you want to heal yourselves, you can. You just need to understand what epigenetics or Ayurveda or complementary medicine is all about. And it's just a matter of time. I think human beings would probably realize and understand that and move completely towards Ayurveda.
I always wonder why we call it complementary or alternative medicine because, I've spent my life, 25 years of my life, being indoctrinated myself within that allopathic models, and yeah, but that's the truth. And it took me a while to get acquainted to the other side, but I was open enough to look into it and started realizing, and that the breakthrough in my case came when I started. My last degree was a research degree that I got in the UK, and was the 2010s, and was on public health. And that was the first time I was challenged by my professors to start looking over the border. I was like, there is something else than what we know as a scientific model. So, and they were promoting it even to have a look there, which I found peculiar but nice. And it was challenging. And that's when I started opening up and saw that there are so many variables at play in one's health, and that it's not the reductionistic model that the allopathic doctors are trained in that really constitute your health. And that's what opened up my perspective to all the other so-called alternative approaches. And nowadays, we're 2024, end of 2024, I'm starting to wonder which of all these models of medicine is the real alternative one. And now I come to the conclusion that the only alternative one is the allopathic model, because it's true.
Is that allopathy is a very, very small part in Ayurveda and TCM. We also do symptomatic treatments for some time. Yeah, to immediately, like if someone is in pain, we would do symptomatic treatment, and that's a very, very small part. That is only for a few days or a few maybe few weeks, and there you have to go to the root, because unless you go to the root, you don't remove the root cause of the disease. So that is certainly something I would completely agree that allopathy itself is complementary. Number two, I would say, the definition of science. What exactly is definition of science? Now, in the last 300 years, the definition of science has been changed. If you see globally, the concept of science was all about quantum physics before the last 3 to 400 years. Yeah. People understood nature. People understood consciousness. People understood our role in nature. People understood exactly how to heal ourselves. Everyone knew that the body knows how to heal itself because it's right in front of you. You get cut here, you don't do anything, stay for 5 hours, it would have already healed. I mean, who's doing that? That's just simple common sense that your body knows how to heal itself. You get a fever, you do not have to take any medication. The fever goes anyways in 4 days. You have a cold and cough, do not take any medicine. For 7 days, the cold and cough would stay and it would anyways go, unless it's a chronic cough, of course, which is due to some other reason. So the body certainly knows how to heal itself. Now, all Ayurveda says, or TCM says, what Ayurveda says is that you need to just help the body to heal itself. And that's exactly what we do. We just give that push to the body in terms of so that the body gets that lifestyle, the diet, the exercise, the medicine to be able to detox it, and the concept of apoptosis again starts. Whether it's cancer, whether it's diabetes because of your carbohydrate metabolic channel being blocked, or psoriasis because of which your in Ayurveda we call it pitta. The pitta is very high, and that's the reason why a person gets psoriasis. So these things are certainly things which can be healed and can be reversed. But again, allopathy would not let you say that. They would not let you tell the world that you can reverse it, since they are not able to reverse it. Since they call it treatment, we cannot call it healing. We have to call it treatment. So there is a complete, like, if you see a railway track, if this is allopathy, this is where Ayurveda is. So they're parallel. They can never meet. They can never meet. So it's either this or that.
That was basically my last question. You already answered. I have at Emmanuel, we have a Chinese medical doctor as well working with us, and he stated that in China, mainland China, the allopathic doctors are working besides the TCM doctors. They work together. So yeah, let's say within cancer treatments, you have an allopathic doctor, but you also have your own TCM doctor, and they work together and they sit together around the table and they work with with the both disciplines together to treat the patient, to heal the patient from both sides of the story. And apparently it's quite successful. So to conclude this podcast, if it's possible within China, or it is at least possible to have these divergent visions come together, what or how can we succeed in well, not only in India, I think globally, I think Ayurveda should have a bigger and broader base. But how can we at least try to reach out to the allopathic model to open up for the perspective of Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine? How can we do that? Do you think you just spoke about two tracks, but isn't there must be a way that we can meet right in the middle? And how can we achieve this?
Absolutely, absolutely, there is a way, Sam. I would say the first problem is the Indian colonial mindset, which needs to be changed. Thankfully, Bobby is doing that, and a lot of, I would say, a lot of Indians now are motivated to understand their scriptures, their greatness of their scriptures, the greatness of the kind of golden egg that they're sitting on, which is their Ayurveda, their yoga, their the arts that they have, the kind of astronomy, cosmology. So a lot of these Indians have never read their scriptures. They have never understood because they've always had this British methodology of studies and education. So now, since people are elevating themselves or moving towards understanding their own culture, their own values, their scriptures, and they are studying it, they are realizing how big it is, how great it is, and the fact that they're sitting on this golden egg. We certainly can come along with the allopathic world, but again, like I said, most of the allopathic doctors have never studied Ayurveda. They have no idea about even a single text or a Subhashit Mala, as we call it, or they are most of these scriptures are written in the form of poetry. That is, a single paragraph. When you read a single paragraph, you would understand how deep it is, and that's exactly if you see Sam in my LinkedIn, I am posting these kinds of Sanskrit shlokas or paragraphs of these poetries, which is talking about quantum physics and its link with Ayurveda. But having said that, whether the allopathic world is ready in India to not selfishly think in terms of business and think in terms of helping human beings, number one. Number two, whether the government can give that kind of push which the Chinese government has given to help allopathy and TCM to work together. I know a few doctors in allopathy who actually come to Ayurveda for treatment. I also know a few allopathic doctors who prescribe Ayurvedic medicines. And at least I'm sure there is some common ground uh, to find amongst ourselves where we can work together and strategize how to go along the path to send and make this whole concept of Ayurveda global. And believe me, once it does, people will never ever go back to allopathy. They would.
That's a great conclusion, I think, to this podcast. Let's keep planting seeds towards reaching out towards each other instead of fighting each other all the time. Thank you very much, Siddhartha Gupta, for joining in today for this great podcast. Thank you and hope to see you soon again.
Thanks, sir. Bye.